Okay, so hi everyone. My name's Emma Kasprack and I'm the Head of Communications for Archery GB. Thanks everyone for giving up a portion of your evening. I really appreciate it for this webinar. I'm just going to turn my camera off and then hopefully you can see the slides easily there. 1 second. Okay. So this webinar this evening is sort of broadly falls into 3 sections. We're going to start off by looking at your websites and how to do a bit of spring cleaning and get them ready for this year. Oh, just checking that someone can see the slides there. Then we'll move on to talking a little bit about social media and boosting engagement. And then we'll finish off with a few tips for filming video for social media as well. But I'll pause at the end of each section. So if anyone's got questions, you'll have a chance to ask them then, or just pop them in the chat as we go along. So I thought I'd start with a quote. I quite like this quote because I think it tells you in a nutshell why search engine optimization matters and what's in it for you. So by the end of this session, you'll be able to reach people who are interested in trying archery and get them to come along to your club. It's no good having a great club that welcomes beginners if they don't know about it. And nowadays, most people find out about things they'd like to do and bookings they'd like to make by Googling them. So we'll also look at making your social media accounts into communities. And as I say, we'll finish off with a quick look at filming videos on your phone. It's going to be quite an interactive session, so I'll ask you to type things into the chat box, but I'll tell you when that's coming up. And if you've got your phone to hand, you might find that helpful for when I'm talking about video. But as I mentioned, we are recording the session, so don't worry if you haven't, you can always have a go with it later. So we'll start off by talking about website content and SEO. And by the end of that session, you'll have a list of tips for making sure your website content is discoverable on Google and not on the dreaded page 2. So before we talk about spring cleaning our websites, it's really important to identify what they're for, which might sound obvious, but when people visit a website, we need to think about what they're hoping for and what's the outcome for them when they type in an address or search for something on Google. So broadly speaking, there's 2 different intents for why people go onto a website. The first one is informational intent and the second one is transactional intent. So if I want to know what's going on in the world, I might visit the BBC News website. If I want to know if the weather's going to be good enough for a picnic at the weekend, I might Google weather forecast Telford. If I want to find out more about archery, I might Google, is archery difficult? Or visit a site like Archery GB and read the getting started section. If I want to book onto a beginner's course, I might Google archery near me or use the AGB Club Finder. But of course, a website can serve 2 purposes. So for example, the National Trust logo I've put on there has lots of articles about historic places, but it's also selling you membership tickets and nice tea towels. So who's your website for and what do you want it to do? Is it about attracting new and returning archers to your club and getting them to book onto a course? Is it about updating club members with competitions, courses and socials, or something else? So over to you. If you could just have a think and put some ideas into the chat box about who you think your website is for. Can be more than one type of user. That's absolutely fine. Yep, so a mix of both really. Some more so for beginners. Yeah, members of the public and people who are already members of your club. Absolutely. And of course, yeah, it can be both. For most of you, I would assume it is. So what I'd like to talk about now is how people find your site. So we'll assume that your existing members already know you've got a club website. But just in case they don't, it is worth including the address in all your communications and on your social media channels. And if you publish something new on your website, like some key dates, make sure you post a link to social media so your existing members know it's there. But what about new members? So I've just got some stats there. On average, the word archery has been searched for 18.1 thousand times a month in the last 12 months in the UK. That's even with COVID and various lockdowns. There's 55.3 thousand searches using archery and other words, such as archery target. And if you add up all those different search terms, it results in 411.7 thousand searches a month related to archery. And people don't just type in key terms into Google, they also type in questions. So for the same period, people submitted 6.7 thousand questions a month to Google about archery. Obviously, some of those questions are quite similar. So if you sort of summarize them down to different types, you end up with 1.9 thousand different types of questions. So again, over to you. What do you think are the top 10 questions that people asked Google about archery each month? Yeah. Yeah, there's some really good suggestions coming in. Where is my local club? Where can I do archery? Archery lessons. Was Robin Hood real? Yeah, equipment as well. There's been some huge spikes in interest in buying equipment over the last 12 months. Yeah, and beginners courses as well. Yeah, the children as well. That's a question that a lot of people have, a lot of families, and around disability. So here are the answers. It's just on the screen there. So these are the top 10 questions according to Google. So we've got, what colour is the ball on an archery target? What is archery? What colour is the centre of the target? How to aim? How to become an instructor? And so on. So what do all these questions have in common? Well, I think you've probably all sort of pointed out there with the suggestions that you were making too. They're all beginners questions. So when it comes to people finding your site from Google, they are likely to be beginners looking to get into archery. And that's great news for us because we can make sure our websites are optimized for Google so that your website and the beginner who's looking onto that to book onto that course meet in the middle. So when people talk about Google, they talk about SEO or search engine optimization. But what is it? Well, to understand it, you have to understand how Google works. Google works by reading the whole of the web all of the time and then working out which parts of the web work best at answering the questions that people have. So if I type into Google best shoes for running, what does Google do? How does it work out which are the millions of potential search results it should serve to me? Well, it does it by assigning value to certain things that it looks for on every website. So it looks at headings, subheadings, copy, images, alt tags, which I'll go on to later, and links. And it's after assessing all those things, it decides whether or not a site is worth serving high up in search results. So it gives every site a sort of a ranking effectively. And why does it matter where you appear in search results? Well, it's back to that quote again. So Google tells us that 33% of users click the top result, 17% click the second result, and 90% don't scroll beyond the first page, which is where we get the quote from. So appearing high up on the first page is vital if you want to connect with potential members. You might think as a small club, you're never going to appear high up in search results compared to, say, Wikipedia or Amazon. But while it's very hard to rank for things like archery overall, you've got a strong chance of ranking for archery near me or beginners archery course Newport or wherever your nearest place is. And that's because users tend to be quite specific with their searches and Google wants to serve them the most relevant results first. And Google tends to know where people live. So if I type in cinema listings, and I'm sure you do the same, you'll see your nearest cinema rather than one that's miles away. So how can you tell Google where you're based? Well, to start with, you should try setting up a Google My Business account, which is free. So if you go to Google My Business, you can list your club's address and pinpoint it on a map. You don't need to be that specific, just a sort of general area will do. It helps though if you do want to be specific so that people don't get lost when they're trying to find you. But it does mean that then when people search for archery near me, your club will come up in the results. You can also use Google My Business to invite people to review your club and beginners courses, because Google will list places with reviews higher than those without, so it's worth considering. How else can Google find out where your club is based? Well, it might seem obvious, but put the address on your homepage and list your location in the copy on any pages you want beginners to find. So Google will look for key terms like archery, Exeter. So make sure you include those on any pages aimed at beginners. So now you've told Google where you are, what sort of content should you include on your website? Well, there's 3 types of articles on a website which all fulfill different functions: Cornerstone articles, product pages, and blog posts. So we'll have a look at each of those in turn. So a Cornerstone article is the core content on your website. They're the pages and posts that you want to perform best on Google, and they'll usually cover everything that's important about a particular topic. They should tell the user what you're about and communicate your sort of club mission. All of your other posts and pages should link back to these 4 or 5 articles. Even the biggest clubs and companies don't have time to make every page rank highly on Google and look amazing. So it's best to concentrate your efforts on just a few key articles and use them to tell people what you do. These pages should link very visibly from your homepage. So you might hear people talk about being able to find the information you need in 3 clicks. So if you can't find your beginner's course information in 3 clicks, you need to think about where you're linking to it from. Other pages should link to them too. So Google sees this is an important article and serves it higher up compared to other pages. So a good Cornerstone article can be long and informative. An example might be a summary of everything your club does with links to courses, competitions, and social events. The types of archery that you do with links to pages about the different disciplines, or an explanation of tournaments, how to take part, leagues, and so on. So once you know what your Cornerstone articles are, you can concentrate your efforts on making them look great with plenty of links, keywords, and photos. You should also put them in your diary and update them at least once a season with new photos and test all the links still work. Check if there's anything new to add or if any contact details have changed. Google regularly recrawls websites, so if you've got more up-to-date content, then it places more value on it, so it's worth spending some time on these articles. Second type of article is one that everyone's probably familiar with, the product page. So for clubs, that's likely to be beginner course details. So what do users look for on a product page? As I've mentioned, the masters at this are Amazon, but any site that sells something broadly follows the same format. So you should have an image, as you can see there, some nice succulents, I think. A clear description of what you're selling, a price, and a call to action, such as click here to book or click here to email us your contact details and preferred course date. Other things to include on a product page are reviews from participants and bullet points for the key things you'll learn. The copy should be clear and readable and provide all of the information someone needs to help them make that decision to book on. Avoid jargon or technical language so that people don't feel out of their depth or as though they'll struggle to take part. And if you can link to some frequently asked questions on what to expect from a course, that's a good way to go into more detail. But make sure your frequently asked questions page links back to your booking page so people remember to then take an action and book on. Can we use try booking for beginners courses? I'll have to defer to Helen on that one, I think, and maybe come back to that in a minute. The third type of article is the blog post. So blog posts answer the questions your visitors have and increase engagement on your site by giving people a reason to keep coming back. So they're sort of more aimed at members, really. So by blogging regularly, it tells Google that your site is alive. It's not just a static site that's been created that has nothing new added to it. So it's worth revisiting, reading the latest updates, and then it'll suggest them in search results. So what makes a good blog post? A blog's a bit like a story or a newspaper article. So it should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So before you start writing it, think about what the central message is going to be, what question you're going to answer, and why someone should read to the end. So a good example might be frequently asked questions about the beginner's archery course, or an update on our plans for a field archery course. Use paragraphs to explain each key point and don't let your paragraphs get too long. Attention spans are shorter online, so try not to give people an excuse to click off your page. Use subheadings to break up your text and use key search terms in your subheadings. So again, some of the questions you suggested earlier, you know, how old do you have to be to learn archery? Things like that are good examples of cross headings. And think about how a user thinks. So the heading, what age can I be to do archery, is better than something like fun for all ages, which no one's actually going to search for. Make sure you use key search words in your article. So if you're writing about inclusive archery and you haven't used the words disabled, disability or wheelchair in your copy, Google might conclude that your article doesn't contain enough relevant information. And then ask someone to read it before you publish, as well as being a good way to check for errors. Just ask them to tell you in one sentence what it's about. And if what they say doesn't match your aim, then it might need a rewrite to get your message across more clearly. At a minimum, blog posts should be about 300 words long, but don't make them too long unless you're a fantastic writer. The average time someone stays on a page is between 30 seconds and a minute. And then add links to your content. So if I've read your post about disability archery, what should I read next? So it's really helpful to point people towards the next page that they should go to. And those links are like a trail of breadcrumbs that keep people on your site for longer. So if someone's more engaged, they read more content, then they're more likely to take an action like joining your club or booking onto a course. And as I mentioned, Google values those sites that have higher engagement. So we've looked at what websites are for and the type of content you should have on them. And we've looked at how Google works, but what are some top tips for your website? Well, have in mind the intent of the user when they visit your site. So are they looking to make a purchase, which in this case could be booking onto a course, or are they looking for information? Decide what makes a successful conversion for you. Will it be someone booking onto a course or entering a competition? Make it easy for the user to take action through either the click of a button or sending an email. If you're asking them to send an email, tell them what information they need to include. Decide what your most important pages are and optimize them for search. But remember, you can't make every page amazing. Keep in mind the tone. You want to appear friendly and welcoming, and try not to use terminology that a newbie won't understand. Oh. Somebody grabbed control of the presentation there. I'll just see if I can get that back. 1 second.
Just while we're resetting now, I'll just pick up Nick's question about try booking. You may indeed use various different platforms for people to be able to book onto your beginners courses or let you know that they would like to take a beginners course. That's probably down to each club to make their decisions that way. In normal times, obviously at the moment, everyone needs to book in to shoot anyway, but remember as well that every beginners course or have a go session needs to be logged on your club profile when you're running beginners courses under the have a go and course registration page. And that's the way to make sure that we can also show where your beginners courses are running if you want us to. You don't have to, we don't have to make those public, but you can choose to opt in or out, but you must register it with us. Okay, back to you, Emma. Thanks.
Thanks, Helen. Yeah, so as I was just saying there about terminology, you don't want anything that a newbie won't understand. Remember why ranking matters. As I've said, 33% click the top result, 17% the second result, and 90% don't scroll beyond the first page. Remember to get your club on the map through Google My Business and ask people to review you to appear higher in results, and list the club's address or nearest town on the home page and get the place name on the beginner's course page. Attention spans on the internet are short, so someone looking to purchase something, whether it's a course or a pair of shoes, should be able to do it in 3 clicks. And all the information they need to make that decision should be easy to find. Think about the 3 types of articles: Cornerstone, product pages, and blog posts, and use them to drive engagement or recruit new members. And finally, there I've just put representation matters. So when people consider joining a club, they want to know that it's a place for people like them. So if you do have a mix of ages or different ethnic backgrounds, disabled archers, include lots of pictures on your website and update your images regularly, just to show that you're a sociable and friendly lot. And then just a note about accessibility. The average reading age in the UK is 9 years old, which might come as a surprise to some. So don't assume that everyone wants detailed prose with lots of long words. If you can keep your text clear and easy to understand, you'll engage with a lot more people. And I talked about alt tags earlier. More than 2 million people in the UK have significant sight loss, and around 1/3 of those use screen readers, which read the text on a website aloud. But how does a screen reader read a photo? It does it by reading the alt tag. So when you upload pictures to your site, if you fill in the alt tag section, which you'll see, assuming most of you have got a WordPress account, it looks like what's on the screen there. So you just need to put a brief description in. It could be something like members of Ordco Archers at a club barbecue, or the winner of the competition, John Smith, holding his trophy. But it's not just for assistive technology use. Google Images is a really big part of the search engine, and Google Images looks for, as it suggests, images as well as words. So if I go to Google Images and type in Archery Shropshire, and you've filled in the alt tags, then I'll see pictures of your club. So it's always worth doing, even as I say, if it's just on those Cornerstone articles. So to finish off the website section, here's a quick list of everything a website article needs to hit the target for SEO and engagement. So every article needs a headline, but you're not writing a newspaper headline, and unfortunately there's no extra points for puns. So the headline should tell Google what the article is about, so it can recommend it to the user. Google only reads the first 55 characters of a headline. You might notice that if you ever go on to a site like, say, BBC News, none of the headlines go beyond that, or very rarely. So try not to convey your message beyond that limit. Write clearly and limit your points to 1 per paragraph. Use subheadings to break up your text, and remember Google values them, so include key terms or questions as subheadings. Use strong images to add colour, but remember to fill in the alt tag. You can break up your text with bullet points and images, but make sure everything's easy to see. So not like the examples I've got on the screen there. If you can do black text on a white or light background, that's best. Include links throughout your copy and at the end to give the reader somewhere to go next, or push them towards an action like click here to sign up. When you use keywords in your copy, think about the different phrases people have for the same thing. So I always give the example of some people search for bike, some people search for bicycle. If you use WordPress, you can download a free plugin called Yoast SEO, where you get to tell it what the keyword is from your article that you want Google to rank for. And aim for 300 words at a minimum to provide valuable information, but don't let your article get too long or you risk people clicking away. So how do you know if it's worked? So you've reviewed your content, you've identified your cornerstone articles, and you've made them brilliant for SEO. You've got some clear product pages that invite people to book onto courses or join your club, and you're writing lots of engaging blog posts and sharing them on social media. How do you know if it's actually worked? If you set up a Google Analytics account with Search Console and link it to your site, you'll get a monthly stat report telling you about the number of visitors you have, how long they visit for, and the most popular pages. If you've got a WordPress account, you can download a free plugin called SiteKit, which will do all this for you. If you look at the number of new visitors and the number of people booking onto your courses, then you've got your conversion rate. Google Analytics includes lots of videos and handy guides to help you get started, and you can go into as much detail or as little as you want with the stats. So how else can you measure your site's impact? If you use incognito browsing to search Google, then Google won't know anything about you. It's a good way to see how you appear on search results. A lot of people will make changes to their site, then they'll Google Archery near me and they'll say, yes, we've come up with the top result. The reason you're the top result is because you go on your club's website regularly. So Google thinks, well, you seem to like this site, I'll put it top. So if you open a tab in a browser like Chrome and select incognito browsing, and then try typing in Archery plus your club's location, and then see if it comes up. And if it doesn't, you might need to look at your site's SEO. Another really good way to see if your website's working is to just ask some people to review it. So when beginners come along, ask them, did you visit our website? Did you find everything you needed when you visited for the first time? What information did you need to book onto a course? And how did they find you? So before we move on to the next part of the webinar, I'd like to invite Daniel from Ely Archers to talk about how they made some improvements to their site.
Brilliant, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant, okay. Yeah, so you've heard a lot about WordPress. It's something that we also use. And I changed the kind of original website about 4 years ago. And you may be happy to know or not that Archery GB use WordPress, and Archery England have just changed their website and they're now using WordPress as well. So it does seem to be quite popular. So we started with a kind of old logo, and I just basically redesigned this site using a free theme that you can get for WordPress. You may find that WordPress is already being offered for you via your web host, and they can install it and everything for you, such as ours, who is hosted by, used to be called 1&1, they're now called Ionos, and they sort of offer us a MySQL database to put that onto, and we only pay about £8 a month for the hosting of that. So when we sort of started off, we kind of gradually started with social media pages as well and kind of linked those to the website. And basically what I wanted when I first chose the theme was this kind of, as you can see on the screen now, this kind of 3 blocks in the middle, because I know what I wanted the front homepage to kind of look like. One with the kind of membership for paying members, and obviously a middle one for the About Us, and then the right hand side for the kind of beginners side as well. Obviously the home screen, if you go and visit our website, elyarchers.org.uk, you'll see that we've got kind of a sliding large image at the top as well, and a news ticker along the top, which is our kind of blog posts. So our site is kind of split into 2 things. So we use posts and pages as well, where pages in WordPress are kind of static pages, whereas as you've heard, blog posts are kind of more for news items, really, things that kind of are dated or get upgraded or changed a lot. So if you can just go on to the next slide, which is my news slide. Okay, so in this section, as I said before, these are all blog posts, and basically what I do is here now and again, they're obviously dated as well, and they've got tags in them. So tags are quite important as well. When you create your blog posts, you can put tags in there, and Google loves tags. It will show loads and loads of tags in the search results. So the tags are really just keywords, really, that you've sort of also included in your blog posts as well. So what we have on our news section as well that I just want to tell you about. We use a plugin called Postie, Postie. Now that's pretty good, because what we do is every time a news article, sorry, it's not Postie on that one, it's done with Mailchimp. I'll go on to Postie in a minute. Anyway, let's go back. Mailchimp I use as well. Mailchimp's been talked about quite a lot in some of the other Archery GB seminars or webinars as well. And what we do is we use Mailchimp, and Mailchimp is set up to look at our news section every week automatically. And if it finds a new post in the news section, what it does is it'll automatically send out that news post as a newsletter, and I don't have to do anything. It'll just automatically send that out to all the subscribers. So that's quite handy because it's automated. Also, I think the best thing to do well, I'll just go back to basically to go through the kind of menus with you, really. When it comes to beginners, we obviously set up a beginners section. That kind of section, I'll go over it. We sort of split it down for prospective archers, really. Beginners, obviously we do an overview of what the beginners course and what they can expect, and then we lead them through to a beginners FAQ, frequently asked questions page. And then we have on our site a page for the course locations with a Google map kind of plugin, so they can see exactly where the locations are. And then a form to register their interest if they don't want to book straight away, or if we haven't currently got a course ready, or they can obviously book straight away. So that's kind of, we're kind of leading them down a path of several steps there to get them to kind of book under the kind of beginners section there as well. When it comes to our current members, the website's kind of, or when members, excuse me, have just started their beginners course, we have pages about all the different badges they can obtain. We have items on there about range layouts, obviously like everyone else, the rules and policies. I've also got classifications on there, figures, archery rounds, and our shooting calendar, which is quite important. WordPress has got loads of different kind of calendars that you can use as plugins to actually enter your training dates or times or any sort of competitions or anything that's on. And we also include our score sheets. All of our score sheets are on there in PDF format in case people do want to print their own. Obviously, we supply them at club printed out, but if they want to print them out, then they can do as well. If you can just go on to the, have I got a members slide in there as well?
That's this one, I think.
Yeah, the last one.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm looking at my own website while I'm looking at in front of the other page. Okay, so something else we do for the members area. Now the members area used to be public, but it was deemed that it was better to be under a kind of passworded area for kind of GDPR and privacy reasons, really, although there's not much information about people on it. No more than you'd normally see if you were looking at results from a kind of an archery shoot, really. So in the members area, which we've got under one single password for everybody, because then it's easy to change and kind of tell everyone about, we've got our club emails. Now what we've done, and I've sort of mentioned this incorrectly earlier, we've got this plugin called Postie, and what it does is you can actually set it up so that every email that you send to your archers from the committee, really, that copy of that email will be automatically turned into a blog post. Now that blog post isn't public, it's sort of in a hidden area, and then all of our emails, club emails, are kind of catalogued really automatically, and people can then log in, and if they want to catch up on emails, they don't have to kind of hunt for them in their inboxes. All of those kind of emails are then on the website as well. Brilliant for historical purposes as well if you need to search them, and it will also add on to those posts things like attachments and also even show images, so it's pretty good. Obviously under the club area we've got the AGM and the meeting minutes as well that we have, and the equipment we have a virtual kind of armory where if there's any items that the club members want to lend out or loan out that they're not using. The club's obviously also got things like fletching jigs and arrow cutter and things like that that they can sort of lend out to members. And finally, our kind of records section. Now, we currently use Golden Records for all of our in-house scores, club records, personal bests, whatever. And what I've done on this is there's a way to actually export the data out of Golden Records into a Microsoft Access database. What I can then do is I can then export that out of Access and then import it back into the MySQL database. And then with a number of queries, or SQL queries, you can then kind of get the data out yourself if you want to display it. So what we've got on here is every archer's got their own page, and they can see all of the badges that they've got, all of their personal bests, and they can see all their club records and any score that they've actually shot, grouped by season, since they kind of joined as well. So I think that's quite important to sort of see all of that data, but that's a bit of a higher level kind of thing really, to have done. But just because that's kind of my background really, sort of databases and programming, that I was kind of able to kind of do that. But I think Golden Records offer that kind of thing online anyway, which is sort of subscription based. So that's us really.
That's great. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, it's a great looking website, and I'm very jealous that you've got your social media icons at the top there as well to make them very visible, because that's something that we need to sort on our site at the moment too.
I've got just before you go on, I've got a few more little improvements list I was going to read out, if that's okay, if you've got another sort of minute or so.
I was going to say, yeah, and if anyone's got any questions for me or Daniel on just the first bit there on websites, if you can type them into the chat as well, we'll go on to those in a minute.
I tried to think up my kind of top 5 improvements that you could make to your kind of website, and the number, I'll just go through them really. Number 1, I'd make sure that every page, whether you've got a blog or just a normal website, make sure every page has its own unique title and description meta tags. So you see the title of most pages in the top of the tabs in the browsers. Sometimes you'll see home pages just having the word like index on them or something like that, and that's really not helping you at all. You really want to have your club name up there, maybe your county in there, and the word archers or archery or something like that, especially on your home page. So yeah, so title and description meta tags need to be kind of unique. You've mentioned already, my second one was about the alt tags in the images. I'd also add to that and say that there's a title meta tag for images as well. And usually WordPress doesn't add those in by default, so I would add both of those in if you can. Thirdly is about making the website responsive. So what do I mean about that? Well, I mean making sure that the website looks good on all sizes of device, such as mobiles, tablets, and on the desktop as well. That was one of the main problems with our last site, was it was just sort of made for a desktop PC. Whereas now a lot of the WordPress themes or look and feel of the WordPress are kind of made to resize and look good. So the fonts enlarge and the images shrink. So you don't have to kind of pinch and zoom in on a mobile phone to read the text. And also Google mostly now indexes your site based on its mobile version. So its mobile version has to be pretty good nowadays. Number 4, get yourself an SSL certificate or a padlock. They're not expensive. They might even be included in your hosting. It is with us. And basically, it just means that all of the data that's exchanged between your website and your server is encrypted. And Google ranks sites higher if you have one of those. And finally, don't forget to back up your website and your databases. Okay, very important, just in case anything happens to it or you lose it. And that's it from me.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. I think there were some questions popping into the chat there, Helen. Are you able to read those out, please?
Yes. Daniel, there's a question there around the Golden Records. The Rob Williams was just asking about with Golden Records, do you have to update that manually to the website?
So I have to do 2 steps really. I have to export. I'm not the records officer now. I used to be, but basically my records officer exports a backup of the from Golden Records to me. And then what I do is I basically then import that into my own copy of Golden Records and then export it to Microsoft Access. and then go into Access, export it as a CSV file, each data table, and then import it to MySQL. And once I've done that, it's automatically, I don't change the queries or anything, they're just static, but it's just moving the data about. That's all it is. There's 2 steps, but it's pretty quick. It's all done by kind of wizards that are inbuilt into Access and things like that. It's just, and we don't do it all, we don't do it every week. We kind of do it like, once a month or something, or when we've had a lot of scores come in, sort of thing like that.
That's great, thank you. And Greg was asking, probably just for people to answer in the chat, really, anyone considered an app with WordPress? So feel free to respond to that. And Chris has asked, any recommended WordPress templates to look at?
Yeah, free ones. Free ones are the best. I'm just going to tell you, I can tell you which ones we use if you want. It's not a secret. I'm just going to go into my...
There's a suggestion there, I think, on Sporty Free.
If you kind of search for the best free websites on Google, then a lot do kind of come up. Let me think. So the theme that we use is Melos, MELOS is the one that we use.
Great.
That's great, thank you.
There's one last question, is do you have much trouble with spam on your inquiry?
No, because what we've done, if I look on the register, on each of the forms, we use a plugin called Contact Forms 7, I think it's called, something like that. And what we've got is we've got the built-in capture through Google, and that does things for us. I know sometimes you'll see it, when you sometimes pop up and says pick all of the squares with the bridges, or pick all the squares with the street lamps on, or something like that. That comes up if it needs to, but we're protected by this recapture thing that I think is a Google built-in. So we don't have a lot of spam. No, we don't. Luckily.
That's great, thanks. Right, so we'll just move on to the next section then. Thank you, Daniel. So we've talked mainly about Google there, but of course not everyone is going to use a search engine to find your site. Social media has fast become a place where people do their research and find new clubs and activities. So now we're going to have a look at how you engage with your followers and grow your reach on social media. So we'll start off with some facts about the main social media platforms. But to begin with, I'm going to set you a challenge of the following quiz. So if you can have a look at question number 1 and type your answer into the chat, what do you think is the average age of a Facebook user? Okay, so we're getting from 25 is I think the youngest I've seen there, 30, 50. Okay, the next question is who has the biggest account on Instagram in terms of followers? Some more age. Trump, I don't think he's on the platform. Beyonce is a very good guess. The Pope, yeah, I think he's on there now. David Beckham. The next one is, what do you think is the fastest growing social media platform? Oh, someone's got one of the right answers there. I will read these all out at the end. Yeah, straight in with TikTok. And the last question, how many tweets are sent every second on Twitter? A gazillion, yeah. Okay, So the answers are, the average age of a Facebook user is 35 to 44. So I think quite a few of you were guessing in that age bracket there. I did see someone had the right answer for the biggest account on Instagram is Cristiano Ronaldo. The fastest growing social media platform, quite a few of you got that right, it is TikTok. It was the fastest of all time to reach 1.1 billion users. And 6,000 tweets are sent every second on Twitter, which is 500 million tweets per day. So I'm just going to give you a little overview of what I consider sort of the big four, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. Of course, YouTube also counts to many as a social media platform. And the sort of private sphere, which would be, you know, Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. But for our purposes, we're just going to focus on the top four this evening. So looking at Facebook first, with all of these, I think it's useful to have these points in mind when considering how you use them. So 73% of US Facebook users log in daily. We can assume it's broadly the same for the UK. It should give you an idea of how often to post. 65% use Facebook to view photos. The best performing posts are those with video or photos included. So don't feel that a post always has to be an article or tons of sort of written copy. A funny meme or a picture can be just as engaging, if not more. 2/3 of Facebook users visit a local business page every week. And it's increasingly become the site that people use to make purchasing decisions or research activities that they're considering doing. More than 1.4 billion people use Facebook groups every month. And this has really skyrocketed through the pandemic. So 26% of Facebook group users' primary group is centered around a hobby. As I say, the pandemic has really pushed that up, but it's thought that engagement will stay high as more people have sort of got used to having their hobby online as well as in the real world. And 15% of all Facebook content is video, but we'll go on into that in more detail later. Twitter is considered the platform of what's trending now. So it's like a giant focus group with people invited to vote on polls or give their views around a particular hashtag. The way to raise awareness of your club is to follow accounts that you've got sort of something in common with and join in with conversations. So you might think to following people like your local council's portfolio holder for sport or your local MP or mayor. If the council's tweeting about getting people active, then you need to be seen there in the conversation saying, well, why don't people give archery a try? If people see you in these online conversations or using a trending hashtag, they're more likely to follow you and grow your account. So I would suggest, you know, find the big local accounts, the sort of virtual town criers for your area, and follow them so you don't miss out on opportunities to promote your club. And make sure you tag your tweets by location, then they'll be suggested to people who live locally to discover and follow your account. With Instagram, it used to have a younger audience than Facebook, but that's increasingly changing, both through awareness of the platform and thanks to the fact that Facebook bought Instagram. Instagram's all about engagement, whether that be comments, shares, likes, saves, followers, and mentions. The more engagement you have, the more Instagram is likely to suggest your account to potential followers. It's got a very different tone to Facebook and Twitter. As I'm sure you're all aware, it's all about imagery that sparks a reaction, whether that be inspiring, funny, or wow. People expect a more fun, light-hearted tone on Instagram, so that's the place to sort of, you know, post your memes and funny pictures. Pictures need captions, both to show what you're about and help boost engagement. So you could share a picture of an archer and who's got an inspiring story, and you can write about that story in the caption underneath. But hashtags are vital for discoverability. You can add up to 30 per post. So don't just use your club's name as a hashtag, use hashtags around archery too. If you type any hashtag into Instagram, it will tell you how many people use it. And obviously there's no point using a hashtag that no one else is using because no one will discover your post. You can add your location as a hashtag and you can tag the photo with the location too. So not only will people who live locally find your content through searching for it, but as I said, Instagram will suggest your account to people who live locally. Stories are another feature on Instagram. They last for 24 hours, but you can save them in collections, and they can be a great reference source for people new to your account. So you could use stories to show how a beginner's course works, or how your first competition works, or a have a go, such as Big Weekend. TikTok, as I mentioned, is the latest social media platform to enter the arena and also the fastest growing. It was helped in part last year by bored teenagers and parents stuck together in lockdown. The audience tends to be younger, as Facebook and Instagram was at first, but you can expect the reach to trickle down through the generations, as we saw with those platforms. So Facebook, of course, famously started as a platform for students. The average age now shows that that's no longer the case. Someone loves a bit of TikTok. Joining a new platform like TikTok earlier gives you more opportunities to grow your account and stand out. Archery's already on there. You know, there's lots of sort of viral videos of trick shots and tips and things like that. Unlike Facebook and Twitter, people don't have to follow you to see your content. It will just be suggested to people who have an interest in sport or archery. So look at what hashtags are trending, and you can have a go at producing content that fits that theme. It could be an ideal project for a younger club member to take on, just to show other young people that the club has a fun side, it's on a platform they engage with, and could encourage more young people to give it a go. Yeah, and good point there, it also links through to Reels on Insta, which is a similar format. So those are the main social media accounts you might consider for your club. I was just interested to know really, which ones do you use at the moment? So if you could share that in the chat, that'd be interesting to see. Yeah, so mainly Facebook and Twitter, a few on Instagram as well. Is anyone using TikTok yet? Great. So we've had an overview of the main social media accounts and how to use them to engage with members. But what about reaching out to beginners? The social media platforms, as I said, are all about engagement. The most successful accounts invite the user to take action, whether that be giving something a like, sharing it, or commenting on it. All social media platforms monitor these engagements to see which pages are doing a good job at maintaining the interests of their followers. And the most successful pages or accounts will appear more often in a person's timeline. So the more someone interacts with your account, the more they see your content. So it's sort of like a circle going round. So it pays to keep your followers or your members interested. Post regularly. Don't think of your page as an extension of your website where you just post news and leave the room. The post should provoke a reaction, so invite people to share their views. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram will all give you insights into what your top 10 posts are. So you can see what's worked and what hasn't. You could try asking questions, running polls, invite people to share photos as long as they've got consent, obviously. The idea should be to make your page feel like a community. And just like you would at your club, you need to make sure everyone feels welcome. So it's a good idea with a Facebook page to keep an eye on the comments or provide some house rules around respecting people's viewpoints, not using derogatory language. So I'm borrowing from the children's TV channel CBeebies, but everyone's welcome is a really good way to view it. So your page shouldn't leave anyone feeling uncomfortable, excluded, or discriminated against. And make sure you cross-promote your accounts. So a lot of you mentioned there having Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Make sure on each of those channels you're promoting the fact you're on those other channels and in any communication that you have to members, like emails. So if you're posting regularly, you've got a friendly community of followers who use your page as a sort of extension of your club, and you want to grow your follower number or reach, what can you do to reach people who aren't currently following your page? Well, first of all, make sure you add the location to any photos or videos you upload. Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook will all suggest your account to people living locally, and some people follow their location on their social media account, so it's a good way to get spotted. Secondly, as I mentioned, use hashtags. These are now on Facebook. They're also already on Twitter and Instagram, but they're more widely used on the latter two. So a picture from an open day could use hashtags like Archery, Field Archery, Gloucester and Gloucestershire, to name a few. And you can even add locations to Instagram stories. So anyone following that location will see your stories. Next, think about how to make your account visible to people who aren't even searching for it. So follow accounts that promote events or sport and fitness locally and join in with their online conversations. So for example, if Shropshire Council tweets outdoor sports clubs can open from the 29th of March, you could comment saying that's great news for our archery club in Telford. People will spot your comment and find out that you exist. If they're interested, they'll follow you, and straight away you've got an opportunity to get someone into the sport. You can have some fun with commenting too. So, you could challenge your local football club to come and have a go, or invite the mayor to try archery. It makes for a great photo opportunity for them and as a marketing opportunity for you. Yeah, it does sound like a full-time job. I would just say do as much or as little as you want with it, really. And I wouldn't sort of give it all to one person. What about events like have-a-goes and beginners courses? If you only promote them on your own page, then only your existing followers will see them. So I would say if you only do one thing on social media, it's make sure your post is set to public and then share it with local community groups. There are thousands of community groups on Facebook, and they're increasingly where people go to find their local events. The chances are a lot of you are probably already in those pages yourself, but it doesn't take long to put a list together. So just looking in my town, there's like a general page for events, a page for events aimed at families, and 3 to 4 for people living on specific housing estates to share news. So if you join all of those, then when you've got an archery event, you can just share it on those pages. We hear anecdotally that until a person started looking, they never knew there was an archery club just down the road. But social media really gives you the chance to sort of reach out to people where they are and show that you're part of their community. Just wondered though if anyone wanted to share their experience of using social media for their club. Or if anyone's got any questions on social media and growing reach before we go on to the last bit this evening. Helen, did we have some questions coming through then?
I'm not sure that if there's any questions, but I'll pick on Ben. Ben said that he oversees the social media. I don't know if Ben wants to contribute at all.
Oh, you ask a silly question, Helen, you're going to get a silly answer. So yeah, I run all of our social media accounts for the club. We don't our website is just to attract new members in, and everything we've got then we transfer them over to Facebook for that members only area, a public area, and a page as well for us. Regularly getting beginners courses put through there, and we will do 8, 9, 10 beginners courses a year completely full via just Facebook.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I do trawl through because we're based in Bedford, so we belong to all the local groups, all the little village groups outside the area. I even cross-reference into where other archery clubs are because it's a buyer's market. I will jump on everything just to kind of promote. It doesn't take that long. Once you've got your post, you can cut and paste it through all your media. So it'll probably take half an hour to do it all. And
that's great. Yeah, thank you, Ben.
That's all right.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, there are so many community groups online now, and so many people do purely find the activities that they do or the days out that they do on Facebook and on no other platform. You will occasionally see in Facebook groups people sharing events that they don't even have any involvement in. It's just sort of having the opportunity to share some news. But it might just be saying to your members, we've created this beginners course. Can you just share it in any community groups that you're in, just to sort of share the workload a bit there. Yeah, Daniel?
Yeah, I was just going to say, it might sound a bit of a faff having to kind of copy and paste and go onto every single social media page, but you can, If you use Instagram, you can post on Instagram, and then it will automatically post, if you want it to Facebook and Twitter as well. So you don't have to kind of repeat. And another thing which is possible, we don't use it, but I know it is possible because I've done it myself. If you use something called Ifttt, what you can actually do is set up automatic applets, and so that if you post on Instagram, it will then go to Facebook and post, Twitter and post. And it does it better because it shows the images as well, where sometimes you just see the links and not the images and things like that. And it will also post to Pinterest. Don't forget about Pinterest as well, because you can put loads of images on there, on boards and stories and things like that as well.
Yeah, Pinterest is a really good shout, actually. It's a really popular platform for sort of hobbies and sharing tips and things. Yeah, Hootsuite as well. I mean, that's what we use for posting across platforms. And that as well means obviously you can schedule your posts too. So you haven't got to give up your weekend to share things on social media if you've scheduled them in advance. So just finally tonight, I just wanted to go through a few tips for smartphone video. So videos are often the top performing posts on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, and of course they're the only form of media on TikTok. So if you're thinking of filming a competition, have a go event or anything else, what are the basics for producing professional looking video? For tonight's webinar, I'm just going to talk about filming video on a smartphone, as I think most people have got one of those. So if, as I said earlier, if you've got your phone handy, it might be worth keeping it near you just to have a look at as I go through these things. As iPhones are the most widely owned phones, the images I'm using on these slides come from iPhones, but you'll find that all smartphones have the same functions generally. So apart from a phone, you don't need any specialist equipment. But if you do want to buy anything, a selfie stick, tripod or external mic can be picked up for very little money. You can get an external mic for a couple of quid, I think. An external battery pack, though, could be your most useful investment, so you don't have to search around for a power point or take your charger out and about. And of course, if you're filming at a range, it's not likely that you'll have somewhere to plug it in anyway. So just some basics. Obviously, before you start filming, you need to make sure you've got the consent of both the person that you're filming or taking pictures of or interviewing. So before you even press record, there's a number of things to check on your phone. We turn on airplane mode and do not disturb to prevent any interruptions like messages or phone calls coming in. If you're filming a great shot, just imagine how annoying it would be if your phone started ringing at that moment and you had to do it all again. And then remember to reconnect in order to send your video on later. Put your screen's brightness up fully so you can see your shot, otherwise you might misjudge the exposure. Video files can get very large very quickly, so check how much storage you've got on your phone. The more you have, obviously, the more you can film, but 5 gigabytes are a good minimum. Make sure your device is fully charged before you start, and it's always worth taking a couple of seconds to clean your lens. It doesn't take long to do, but it can make a massive difference to what your shot actually looks like in the end. So some basics for your picture. Which way should you hold your phone? Well, vertical video has grown hugely, but you'll get much better results, particularly when it comes to editing it if you hold it horizontally. Your screen will probably have an array of buttons when you go into filming video to tap to adjust various settings. The iPhone is pretty clean, but on most devices you can simply tap to adjust the focus and exposure that your device otherwise sets automatically for you. But why should you take control? Well, it will lead to a better shot because you can decide what to focus on and how bright it should be, not the phone. So if you press and hold your finger on the image, you can lock in those settings. You'll see AEAF appear when you've done that, and you can swipe up or down to tweak the exposure further. So if you want to film yourself talking to the camera, if you set up the camera and sit or stand where you're going to be positioned while filming, and then just ask somebody to tap and hold where your face appears in shot to lock the focus on your face, and that just ensures that you'll stay in focus when you're talking and it doesn't become blurred. So once you've locked the exposure onto a person's face, you can swipe up and down on the little sunshine icon that you can see there and that adjusts the brightness. By widening your fingers, the zoom activates, but try to avoid zooming too much. As I'm sure you've all seen, it does reduce the picture quality. Smartphones don't record brilliantly in low light, so where you can, film outdoors. If you have to film indoors, do what you can to improve the light. So turn on some lights or open some curtains. This is my DIY tripod for anyone who doesn't want to buy one. So you can make a tripod with a water bottle and an elastic band. It's really important that you hold the camera steady. Otherwise, if you can't do that, lean against something like a wall, or hold your phone with two hands with your elbows close to your body. With thanks to my husband who had to pose for these shots. So think about the height of your camera. Ideally, you want to have it at eye level, like you see in the middle there. It makes you appear sort of like you're talking to somebody on the level, I suppose, friendly, conversational. If the camera is held too high, it can make you look small. And if you've got it positioned too low, it'll look like you're looming over the screen. Your face shouldn't be boxed in either, so make sure you're in the middle or to the side with space in front of you to breathe, which you sort of probably think of as the classic talking head shot. Getting all the audio is obviously really important if you want to record video, and the inbuilt microphone on most smartphones will be good enough for that. But if you're interviewing somebody and you're, perhaps where your club's based is near to a busy road, or you've just got a lot going on, the distance between you and the phone isn't necessarily going to get good audio. One way to improve that, if you can't get somewhere quieter, is to just plug in the headphones that come with your phone and hold the microphone at about chest height, and you'll get a much richer sound. Obviously, make sure the headphones are plugged all the way in before you start recording. If you want to create video and keep your hands free, though, it's probably worth getting an external clip mic that you can plug into your phone's jack, or use a Bluetooth mic so you don't have to mess about with wires. So when it comes to editing it, obviously there's going to be situations where you just want a shorter clip from something you filmed. iMovie comes as standard on iPhones or is available free in the App Store. There's lots of other apps out there, some free, some paid for, but that's probably one of the easiest ways to edit your video for social media. So if you want to take a shorter clip, you go to video and tap edit, and then you can just about see on the screen there, you can move either end of that yellow trim window to set your in and out points, and then you can tap play to review it and then done if you're happy. The shorter the video, the quicker it'll be to share on social media. If you've made a mistake, you can just click revert and go back. And finally, just have a go. The best way to shoot great videos is to practice. So have a go at setting up your phone, check that you're in focus and with enough light and that you can be heard clearly. Sometimes it's just a case of moving to a different room or a different part of the range, or plugging in your headphones. That could make an okay video into a really great piece of content. So just wondered, do any of you film videos for your club's social media pages at the moment? And is anyone happy to share any experience of that?
So Mira said she does. Mira, are you happy to tell us a bit more about that?
I am.
Great, thank you.
So we had a group exercise. So we got the whole, so rather than just having beginners doing exercises before they start shooting, we had all our members doing it together. And I thought, what better chances, get everyone consented to having themselves recorded. So get the coaches involved. Coaches are demonstrating the exercises. Everyone around them is doing the exercises as well. Got a chance to show like there's different people, because we have we have a range of members as well, from youngs to older, and it was quite nice to see how everyone is doing the exercise together and show them what they're doing wrong as well and where they can improve. It's something that we've started doing a lot of now in order to help improve members' ability to shoot and see where they're going wrong, and they can see it themselves, so they get to watch it back. But I encourage everyone to do that a lot more, because that way people are learning as well.
That's really great. Thanks, Mira.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Does anyone have any questions about video? I think I saw some people sharing some tips there in the chat as well.
Yeah, there's been a question for you, Emma. Have you used any of the coaching apps like, you might have to help me with this, Nick, Coach's Eye? Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
I'm not familiar with that.
And Huddle.
No, I haven't.
Is that one you'd recommend, Nick?
Coach's Eye is, yeah, it's really good. It's a really clear picture, and you can change the speed quite easily. So when you're copying it, you can take copies of pictures and all sorts of it.
Great. Oh, good. Some other people use that as well, so that's great. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks. Yeah, that sounds really good.
What about using YouTube for promoting videos? Neil has asked.
Yeah, obviously with YouTube, you've got more scope for the length of the video. So, you know, whereas with the likes of Facebook or Twitter, it's kind of less is more. With YouTube, you can go into a lot more detail, but in a way it can be a bit less forgiving. So I think people will accept a video being a bit rough and ready on TikTok or Instagram, but on YouTube they sort of expect it to look a bit more polished. So that's where you definitely need to consider using some editing software, just to sort of make sure that you've got, as someone mentioned, say, you know, good sound levels throughout, that you can have a few different shots, you know, have a mix of perhaps a coach talking to camera, then showing different people's form and so on. But there's a lot of archery videos on YouTube, so I would say just have a watch of what's out there already, and that will give you some ideas. Yeah, and on our own channels as well about how we put those together. For a longer video, I'd always suggest storyboarding it, just so that you've got, you know, just a rough idea of how it's going to look, the finished product, and what shots you need to gather. There's nothing more frustrating than going out for the day, filming lots, and then getting back and thinking, oh, I haven't got enough sort of cutaways of just people, you know, getting the equipment set up, or oh, I didn't get so-and-so's name. I think someone mentioned their consent as well. Obviously, it's really important to get consent, particularly if you're filming children and wanting to share it on social media. There's a lot of forms you can find online, photography and filming consent forms, that you can just sort of adapt quite quickly for your club, and make sure you just take a stack of those along with you whenever you're doing filming. Someone got their hand up there. I can't see who that is, sorry.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was me, Emma.
Yeah.
It was just something. I was just going to say something about and you've just covered the point with permission, particularly if you're using YouTube, because it becomes more exposed then. So you do have to have the permission.
Yeah. You also have to be careful about if there's any music playing in the background as well.
Yeah,
I know
you do.
sometimes people have music playing at competitions, and it's, you know, there can be sort of copyright issues.
They'll just what they'll do now, Emma, I believe, because I had this a few days ago with one of my own videos. I had permission to use one particular track, but in the background there was another track running, and they switched the whole thing off. So I ended up with a gap in between a soundtrack.
Yeah,
they will do it. You know, it may go on there for a couple of hours, but they will pull it off if you're not careful.
Yeah. Sometimes if that can't be avoided, it's better just to remove the sound entirely. You can always do a voice track that goes over it separately to explain what's going on. And there are sort of music libraries of free music within YouTube that don't have any rights issues that you could put over the top if you need to, if you find you have that issue.
Alex raised another good point that drone footage is also interesting. So he's got some drone footage of the club as well.
Yeah, that can work really nicely. Obviously, there's sort of that throws up all of its own separate issues around, you know, licensing and safety and so on, which I won't go into because I haven't got a drone license. But yeah, it can make really nice videos. It gives you a different angle. Yeah, they work really nicely. Oh, I think someone's sharing a photo consent form there. I don't know if that's one of ours or.
Yeah, that looks like out of the safeguarding policy. Thanks, Greg. That's really good.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, that's a good point as well. You'll quite often find there's a local person who's into drone photography that might come and film some drone footage for you for free, just because it means they get the chance to fly their drone as well on private land. So that's another one to consider if you haven't got somebody in the club already who can do that. So that was a very quick run through of how to film videos on a smartphone. Yeah, or students as well. I hope you found that helpful to finish off tonight. As I mentioned at the start, we've recorded this session, so it will be available on our YouTube channel soon. If you want to go over any of the tips that we've gone through tonight, or share them with anyone else who was unable to attend. So I'd like to thank everyone for taking part, and in particular Daniel for sharing your experience of your club site, and everyone else who shared what they've done as well around social media and so on. There's lots of free tutorials on SEO, social media engagement and video available online, you know, both from us and other platforms. But from this webinar, hopefully you'll see that websites and social media platforms are a really great way to grow your membership and engage with club members. I would consider SEO and your social media accounts as sort of ongoing elements of your club that need maintenance just as much as physical assets like storage sheds and kit. So pop them in the diary and get spring cleaning. Thanks again for taking part though, and good luck everyone.
I've just popped a link to the feedback survey in the chat. If you could click on that before you leave, we'd really appreciate your feedback or ideas for the future. And do check out the other webinars that we've got coming up. There's lots of different courses available, or you might want to recommend someone else in your club a webinar if you think it would be more relevant for them. But thanks everybody, great to see you tonight.
Yeah, thank you everyone.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Emma.
Thanks.
Yes, guys. See you
Good night.
later.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later, guys. Bye.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.